Okay, up next, we have a very interesting panel, which is the CEO panel discussion on future-defining trends and disruptions that will shape the next 10 years. Very interestingly, we'll of course discuss what will change permanently, but also what will never change. To take this forward, please join me as I once again welcome the moderator for this panel, Ranjit Kumar, onto the stage, please. With a round of applause, let's welcome him.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming in and taking out time. Once again, I wanted to thank all of you.
And with that, without further ado, I would like to quickly request our panelists to please join us for this panel onto the stage, starting with EVP Sales and Operations ITC, Sachin Sahay. For joining us, really value your presence with us today. Please keep it going as I invite Manish Anandani, Managing Director, Kenvue India South Asia, onto the stage to join us for the panel. Thank you for joining us. Suhail Samir, founder OTP Venture, former CEO BharatPe. Thank you for joining us, sir. Please put your hands together as I invite the chairman of Clover, Mr. Javed Tapia. I think we can do better with the applause, right? We can do better. There are such bright minds on the stage. We can definitely cheer them better.
Thank you. Thank you once again. It's actually a great pleasure to have Javed on the panel because he's been in the domain for a long time. He was CEO for Red Hat, and he's been chairman of Clover Infotech. And it's a great pleasure to have you, Javed. I'll introduce Suhail a little more. So he's been one of the earliest, he has a distinction of working with a traditional company or a CPG company, leading a CPG company, and also been closely associated with new generation companies, D2C companies, and a very diverse exposure, which will be coming really handy for this panel discussion. With that, I will introduce Manish. Manish, to my knowledge, has been one of the earliest adopters of AI and technology in your various stints across different geographies that we've been working with. And in fact, if I can recall, maybe 3 years back, we also had our first association with J&J when you were MD for Philippines, and that project is already scaled up now. I'll introduce Sachin. Sachin has been leading sales and route to market innovation for ITC, including eB2B at one of the largest scales in the world, from the time when actually no one believed in what eB2B is all about. So right now we're talking about eB2B. We see a scale which is shaping up. We have some sort of a playbook. But I recall in 2017, when this word did not exist, and literally did not exist. We used to call it as a retailer app, and ITC has been investing on that since then. And now we have reached a scale and a shape which actually is defining the industry boundaries. Happy to have you, Sachin. The topic of the CEO panel is future-defining trends and disruptions that will shape the next 10 years. And one more important thing that we'll touch upon is, while we are talking about change, we should also know what are the things which may never change. So what are the things which will never change, and what are the things which will change permanently? And as a leader, we should be aware of both of these to form our strategies. And in this session, we'll delve a little deeper into the impact of AI for business, eB2B, D2C, which is, all of us are aware that it's really coming in different shapes and size and is competing with existing incumbents. And quick commerce is something that especially caught us by surprise. So we'll try and delve deeper into each of these topics as we go along. First question, I'll come to you, Manish. You have seen the evolution of technology in various roles that you have worked with, in various functions that you've been working with. How do you think next 10 years will be different than the previous 10 years?
See, first is that about the 10 years. I believe whatever has happened in many decades in the past is going to be happening at a much faster pace within the next decade, or maybe faster. And as you mentioned about quick commerce, right? Who knew that last 5 quarters, quick commerce has become 10x, and it's going to become even more 10x or probably more in coming few quarters. So there are few things which we believe are going to change, right? One is really the first part is sequential versus exponential, right? Because if you look at internet in the past, right? Internet had like, first it came to cafes, then it came to home through the modem, and then it came to the laptops or computers, and then it came to the phone. But if you look at in India, it didn't follow that path. This was the path in the West. Whereas in India, it just the smartphones came and internet was all over the country in no time. And that's what is happening with technology in FMCG companies as well, right? Everything is moving at so fast pace that it's really going to be exponential. Second change, which we believe is going to happen is, earlier we used to use the word cohorts, and that's going to move to personalization.
Yep.
What I mean by that is because if you just go back, and we are all salespeople on this room, right? We all have heard a concept called category management. I mean, category management came in existence because of the fact that there was no personalized data.
Yep.
So the manufacturers came out with the category management because it's an aggregate of many consumers or many shoppers, and that's how the category management came. Now the category management has evolved to really personalize thing. For example, we have a brand called 𝗗𝗜𝗦𝗦𝗜𝗢, which is our iconic brand. We offer something called Skin 360, where anybody can really look at their skin and decide which of the skin product of 𝗗𝗜𝗦𝗦𝗢𝗍 they need to use, which is useful for their own purpose. And if you look at from a sales side of it, today, retailers, we are selling an assortment through a AI ML based solution specifically for each retailer, right? It's not like we are selling it to a combination of retailers. So really from cohorts to personalization, that's the other part. And the third thing is really from selective to scale, right? We always used to have a selective way of approach, and now we are really looking at how do we scale it big time. Like you must have all have heard that, hey, we have to do digital marketing, right? I think that is gone. Nobody's doing digital marketing. Now marketing digitally is happening because every part of marketing requires digital intervention. Earlier it was digital marketing, but now it's not. Marketing entire part. Same is the case with supply chain. We just launched a new sanitary napkin this month, and this was launched in less than 6 months because we use technology to really understand the consumer demand. In past, if you remember, we will do a consumer research. It will take God knows how many times, right? How many months before we really get an output. Now we get it in few days, and we are utilizing. So these are the few things which I believe will happen as we go ahead into the future.
Thank you, Manish. I think that was very well articulated, and you rightly said, in fact, we resonate so closely with that, and it looked like as if we are talking the same language because we have been building our solution on personalization, hyper-personalization for retailer, for sales reps, and not a cohort-based suggestive selling, which has existed for a long, long time. So yes, the time is here where the technology dimensions are really making it exponential jump, like you said, and not necessarily incrementally moving each step at one point in time. Thank you for your great input on that. So I would invite Javed to have a little more light on what has been his experience with the change of technology and the pace at which it is changing right now, and maybe what kind of threats and challenges does he see with respect to the pace at which technology is changing. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. So, firstly, thank you for having me here. Sandeep, I'm filling Sandeep's shoes, so those are big shoes to fill, for sure. Talking about technology, the way I look at technology changing, what I see is, if you look at the space that I come from, which is information technology and the impact that AI is having on it, I think what we've seen in the last 10 years with the whole advent of open source and how innovation in technology has moved from the proprietary world to the world at large, where innovation is happening across the globe and not in an organized fashion, in a democratized fashion. And I think that's one thing that AI is going to do, is bring equality in technology to all spheres of humanity. And I think that's one clear impact that I see. I also see that, especially in the technology world, it's going to lead to a huge disruption. What automation and robotics has done to manufacturing, I think that's what AI is going to do to the tech world. And I think that's a fundamental change that's going to take place. Of course, it's going to be a very disruptive change and things that we will have to kind of adapt and learn and relearn, but that's the way it's going to be. And one change that I see coming from a mankind perspective, I think as humans, we are going to have to learn to live in probably a lot more, a world that's a lot more open, a lot more transformative, and obviously has a lot more responsibility on us.
Thank you, Javed. I think that really embraces the philosophy that this is not the time where actually we can have or we can afford to wait and watch and maybe work or maybe evolve at our own pace. It's almost a compelling situation that business leaders need to be thinking and matching either the pace or being ahead in a sense that they don't lose out. And that's so critical in current age. Thank you, Javed, for that. Like I said, from a diversity of business point of view, there's no better than Suhail in terms of handling diverse businesses from different leadership positions that he has held. And the diverse topics that I would want to get your insights from is, which is, I would say, intrigued me for quite some time now, is D2C revolution happening in a certain way? I call it revolution, I don't know, because, you know, at one end, they are making a dent in every single company that I am working with, and I can sense and see that. At the same time, none of them are making money. So while they have certain capabilities which these incumbents or large traditional companies don't have, and what they have developed, maybe these companies don't have. So what has been your learning in terms of where D2C thing is going and what, let's say, maybe D2C can learn from traditional business or what traditional business can learn from D2C companies? Yeah.
I think let me actually start with saying we brandish D2C brands too much as companies which lose money. I think many of the people here have sort of built large businesses, and they would start with saying that it's a lot of rigor and a lot of time, right? So, I remember having this conversation a lot with Varun at 𝗗𝗦𝗦𝗦𝗦𝗡 when they were going public. Basically, the full media was ripping them apart on loss-making company, what are you talking about, valuation, etc. I think we sometimes lose the context of what it takes to build a business quickly, right? A lot of the young brands are trying to do what like established companies took decades to build over a period of a decade, right? So, and that always comes at its own set of costs, own set of mistakes which you learn along the way, and sort of that's part and parcel of the game, right? So it would have been unimaginable to build a 2,000 crore company in consumer in a 6-year period, which sort of what 𝗗𝗦𝗦𝗦𝗡 did, right? So it will obviously come with losses, right? So I think though what sort of has really stuck with me is the way the market is evolving and the way the go-to market is changing, right? So it took us like a few decades to move from necessarily direct distribution to stores to sort of saying marketplaces, and from there to D2C, and now sort of every evolution is happening faster and faster, right? So I think that will open up incredible amount of opportunities, right? And again, I don't know whether the legacy businesses sort of will adopt better or the new age businesses will adopt better. But every transition like this creates new businesses and leaves a lot of businesses behind, right? And this would have happened even with the quick commerce revolution, right? So a lot of conventional brands, again, I take personal hygiene, again, you understand the category very well. 7-8 years back, bunch of brands came in this space, right? And pharmacies and like sort of, and let me not sort of get into names. And as soon as sort of the world moved from there to quick commerce, many of them sort of failed to see that wave coming and sort of failed to survive. And what survived today is probably a couple of brands, Plush, Nua, and the likes. Again, subscale brands in the context of a stay free, but sort of those guys adopted to that wave much better and sort of are there to now play. I think what will sort of these disruptions will become, to sort of point what Javed was saying, they will become faster and faster. I think what D2C brands really need to sort of focus on being able to adapt to this, right, and quickly adapt to this. Everyone sort of starts with the starting point, and we all have a habit of sort of getting stuck to it. Lethargy or sort of inaction, as you were saying, is sort of a common problem no matter what your starting point is. I think people who will sort of adopt to that will continue to grow faster. How quickly you adopt to that is sort of what is going to drive success. And I don't mean first mover here, right? So a lot of people talk about first mover advantage. I think India is a market where there is a first mover disadvantage. You need to learn from the mistakes of the first people jumping into the bandwagon, and we talk about it a lot in the context of BharatPe, right? So of course we had one turbulent year, but from a business point of view, like we learned from whatever Paytm did. They are sort of the pioneers of UPI. And we learned from them that payments is a place where no one can make money, right? And therefore, from day one, we started with how can we do lending. I think coming back to the sort of the point is the faster you learn and the faster you can predict disruptions is going to be an incredible skill. And therefore, there was a time when people were sort of moving more and more specialized skills. I think we may also see sort of a reversal on that, on saying generalists who are able to predict trends are very critical to the success of the business again, right? So I think that's sort of one thing I see. I think from a D2C world, what they really need to learn is the discipline sort of running a large business, right? Which no one can teach us sort of better than some of the people on the table, because it is not only about, I think the product disruption will become very quick now. Like I remember like companies like McAfee tried to do personalized product and massively struggled, right? But today, Neutrogena, I use, by the way, the product. I did the 360. I came to it's my favorite moisturizer. You guys should try it, Neutrogena Hydra Boost. That sort of came out as an answer of this, right? And the technology has evolved so much that instead of asking you simple, stupid 5 questions, is your skin dry or oily, etc. Now, a camera can look at your face and sort of recommend what works for you, right? And therefore, the product development cycle with sort of innovation happening in manufacturing, all that will become very fast. It's about sort of adopting that, and then it will become very quickly table stake as well. What will really sort of matter are what are you all able to do on distribution and how can you learn from large players? What are you able to do on customer service? Because actually AI is going to disrupt that the most. And what are you going to sort of build a enduring brand, right? So, and that's where sort of the D2C brands need to sort of learn from incumbents, because most D2C brands by definition are heavy digital marketing and let me get the user versus sort of heavy brand building and let me sort of build an enduring brand.
Thank you. I think that was very well said, and you know that's what actually brings me to a little follow-up question, which maybe Sachin and Manish you can add up to. See, what has been the experience for the industry is D2C brands, because of their agility, have been doing extraordinarily well in terms of picking up right customer segments and creating products which customers are resonating with, which let's say a large traditional company takes years to even figure out, or even if they figure out, takes years to launch. So that's a great, I would say, demonstration of capability which these companies have done. At the same time, like Samir said, I mean, let's say Mamaearth is one exception. I'm talking about, let's say, hundreds of other companies who are in the range of 5 crores to 50 crore, who are actually hurting the large companies in terms of their revenue, but then they are themselves not evolving enough or don't see that bandwidth to getting into the distribution game, which is owned by practically these companies. So do you think that large companies will have more agility to learn the game which they are good at, or these companies will sooner than later crack the distribution and be there? One of you maybe can take up. Yeah.
Okay, thanks Ranjit. Very interesting topic, and I must say that digital native brands or many of the D2C brands which have flourished in India today have been built on the digital ecosystem, e-commerce and so on. I think they've done a wonderful and a very, very smart thing of identifying the right product for the discerning consumer. That is something which they've been able to do extremely well. But the fact is that, when they reach to a certain level of scale, let's say 50 crores, 100 crores, they seem to get stagnated. To my mind, when we as large companies, when we look at many of these brands, to my mind, they are great inspiration as I would see it, in terms of trying to learn from them. How do they manage e-commerce? How do they manage to stay afloat and fight it really hard, be innovative, and therefore, to a great extent, there are a couple of learnings which we as large players have always done that. A lot of times we have a fancy for great scale, and therefore when you're selling thousands of crores, you tend to ignore a couple of lakhs. But the fact is that a couple of lakhs can tomorrow become thousands of crores. And therefore, in our processes as well, and one great example that comes to my mind is when we sell Ashirwad Atta, which is multiples of thousands of crores, we realize that there is a possibility of looking at a curated atta for consumers who may be discerning and would be requiring a specific kind of atta, because they are very, very particular about the kind of wheat which goes into the making of that atta. And therefore, we created what is called Namma Chakki in Bangalore. And that is a platform for consumers to curate a very, very specific kind of atta for them. The scale is very small, but is gradually gaining traction. And that's the way I would see as a great inspiration from D2C brands. The other area where I think the two can come together very, very strongly is in the entire area of supply chain, working on supply chain efficiencies. Because when you see a very small scale player becoming big, the supply chain system tends to start cracking up. How do you work on those finer nuances of using data analytics to build the right products availability at the right time, at the right place, is something which I think there's a great potential for the two to get together to learn from each other.
Thank you, Sachin. I think that's very well said in terms of how actually large companies can take inspiration rather than dismiss what they are doing. I think that's the right way. Manish, would you like to add on that?
If I were to just put it from a point of view, see, the D2C brand, and in my mind, there are two kinds of D2C brands. One are which are genuinely based on a consumer need or need gap, whichever the case may be. And there are other which are playing just the price game, right? The ones which are playing the price games don't necessarily have the long-term runway. But the ones which are genuinely playing the consumer need gap thing, they are the winners, right? And you can see some examples on both sides. Now coming to the distribution point, I think distribution used to be a competitive advantage in past, not anymore. Gone are the days where large companies used to claim, say, oh, I have 5 million stores, and by the time you reach there, you will be retiring. But that's not the case anymore. Companies are able to scale up distribution through e-commerce, through modern trade, through select wholesale, and you are able to come to the level of competition with large players like us or any other player. So the biggest mistake any large player can do is to dismiss any small competition. And as he pointed out, they are small today, but they will not be small tomorrow. That's one part. But I think it's not the competition. What the big players have to become better at is understanding the consumer. Because sometimes when you are too large, your agility to really understand the consumer need at the right pace becomes slow. And that's where the so-called D2C or the new companies take advantage of. The second thing where the D2C company probably can learn from us is how to make money as well, right? Because I can run a business today. I'm not allowed to run a business at a loss, right? But they are allowed to run a business at a loss. But at some point, as you were mentioning about Hamza, right? That they were making losses, but now they're making profit. At some point, all of us, we are not in a business of just selling product without profit. We have to make money. So something which has to come eventually to an end of that, it has to be profitable. If it's not profitable, you're not doing justice to your shareholders because they are there for investment, right? Like many other early investors into the business, right? So that's the second part of it. And the third part is really, which is the part which probably gets not talked about as much, is the talent, right? I'm seeing a cycle of talent, right? If you just go back 10 years back, right? The people were saying FMCG is a good place to work. Then the wave came saying, oh, we don't want to work for FMCG. We want to work for e-commerce and modern trade, right? Then the cycle came back saying, oh, now that's becoming tough. Come back to FMCG. Then the cycle came 3 years back saying everybody thought startup is the way to work. Now I was sitting, we are recruiting few people right now in our organization. I'm getting a ton of requests from the people from startups coming back to large company. So this is like a cycle, right? People learn from one and go to another, add value, come back and add value from that. So that's the cycle which goes in product as well as the people.
Great. Thank you for this great insight. And in fact, if I take, from the points that both of you made, actually, at least it is established to the large CPG companies that there is something which is happening better than what they are able to do. And maybe the agile companies who are large but agile and either making acquisitions or are learning the playbook of B2C companies. So, concluding points on that. From organization moving to a current capability to learning that versus acquiring that capability, what do you think is a better situation for large companies in long run or short run, whichever way you want to answer that, please?
If I just make this in a 2x2 metric, right? So this is your right to win and one access, and this is what's the size of the prize, right? In this 2x2, I will say there will be some where you have to build, and there are some where you have to buy. It'll never be one or the other. For example, today's sales team is evolving, right? The job of a sales team is completely going through a transformation. Like marketing team, like in our company, we don't call marketers because their jobs are moving completely from purely looking at advertising campaign and only focusing on whether I'm having an influencer campaign to really commercial. Same as the case with sales. Sales used to be like, I'm supposed to ship my inventory to, like you see 10 years back, it used to be a, what do we call it? We used to call it trade marketing. Yeah. Which basically means you put your product into somebody's warehouse, distributor or then we evolved it to customer marketing. No, we have to put it on the shelf. Then it is evolved to shopper marketing, which basically means we have to put it in the consumer's basket. So it's evolving. And in my mind today, sales has moved to an area where I call them sales and analytics. It's all combined. There's not a time where the analytics used to be a separate function. So this you can build in-house. But like for different capabilities, right, where you have to continue to buy, because last mile delivery, probably I will never know as well as he would know, because his experience is very different on a last mile delivery than what a large company like us would be, because we are trained from the beginning is being is better.
Yep.
They are trained from the beginning, anything is better as long as it's coming, right? So we have to learn the tricks of the trade. So then somewhere buy, somewhere build is the combination.
Thank you. I think that's it. You want to add to that?
Slightly differently, but yeah, I certainly think that elephants can dance. This is where data and analytics is beginning to play an extremely important role in helping elephants to dance. the more sharper your data gets, the more, let's say, not be dependent upon just your internal ecosystem, but on a large part of your external ecosystem. How do you get both external and internal data kind of get together and start shaping behavior, be it in terms of competence build or be it in terms of performance build, is just something which large companies are learning very, very fast. And I do feel that that is something which, generally there's no option but for you to adopt. And if you don't do, then you'll be left behind. So I guess large companies have to, by default, get onto that bandwagon.
Great. Thank you. Final take from Javed and Sue on the same point.
I think it's interesting because I think everyone will come to this with a very different point of view on where large companies will buy and where they will sort of build. I think at least from a venture ecosystem, what I have seen that sort of, lucky to see sort of 60, 70 companies. And unfortunately now I'm a VC, so my job is to figure out where will I exit this company to. I think we've generally felt, good acquisitions happen in one or two areas. They happen in product gaps where either when the incumbent or the new sort of B2C brand was starting out, the category was small, it has sort of fast evolved and become a reasonable size, and company is still not very big, and sort of a incumbent brand is basically treating it as can I get the sort of product capability or the market. Actually less product can be built, like they're not very complicated product. You can look at the back of the back and re-engineer the product. But can I get sort of that consumer segment which loves this brand, etc. in-house, right? Which are these acquisitions which happen in the 50, 100, 200 crore revenue sort of range. And typically happen for a single category brand, right? So, because like it's a equivalent of a house of brand or a D2C brand doing every product, then there is sort of very little fit in the large ecosystem. You just literally take out one capability and sort of build it. The second is sort of what Manish just talked about. Very different skill set, very different go-to-market, which is very difficult to build. Like not necessarily the best answer today, but 2 years back, someone built creator-led sort of a community build sales as a product. A great sort of company to acquire. I think acquiring purely for talent and acquiring purely for sort of a product range, I don't think it works any longer, right? It's talent. I think it is, as Manish said, we've seen these cycles. The quality of talent in FMCG companies is in general great, right? Like where do B2C companies hire from, right? So you wouldn't typically hire for talent. You wouldn't acquire for talent. And you wouldn't acquire for sort of a widely distributed brand, right? So those things, I think incumbents always feel very comfortable building from scratch. I'm sure they can build the other two things as well. It's at some point of time a conversation about, do we want to acquire a starting ground or do we want to sort of take 3 years to get there, right? So, and I think this is also a legitimate path for sort of brands to get built, right? I am literally building for an acquisition. If the acquisition doesn't happen, we will figure out what additional brands we will like and what pivots we will build. But there are sort of legitimate number of companies who are building that, knowing the end path is a 200 crore revenue if I do it on my own. Then I need to get into a J&J ITC type setup, which can then sort of expand the reach and the distribution and take the business to 1,000 crore.
Very valid, and I think no harm in that because having done the groundwork of product discovery, customer preferences, validation of all of that, and then exiting at a certain point in time, at least some work is done, and obviously, so that's a good point, and certainly. Javed, would you like to conclude?
If you look at the technology world and if you look at the kind of acquisitions and the kind of how the large companies go about building their portfolio of products, I think that's really the true, they have the deepest pockets if you look at the large tech, but yet they do so much acquisition. Obviously, there's good reason that they can't do all the innovation in the world. I mean, look at Salescode. Salesforce has billions of dollars, but I think what you've done far exceeds what they have even envisioned, right?
Yes.
So I'm sure that there is definitely both build and buy.
Yes.
There will be areas where build makes more sense, but there'll be areas where buy makes a lot more sense because they haven't been able to accomplish that kind of product or that kind of capability.
Great. Thank you so much. It's been a great discussion on some of the topics which are, let's say, still emerging. No one has right answers, but yes, we need to be deliberating on these to really find our own ways and learn from each other and eventually arrive on something which can guide us to taking the next steps and right choices for the future. With that, I'll really thank all of you for taking out time to come here and look forward to meeting up next time in even better situation with more exciting topics. Thank you so much.